Hi, I'm George from NBI Hockey,
And I'm Brody from BroalieTalksHockey.
and welcome back to Winning on Paper. We're moving on to the Eastern Conference now, the back half of our NHL preview series. And we're covering the Atlantic Division this week, as we briefly mentioned last week on the episode. And a lot of movement in the Atlantic. I was kind of surprised. I didn't realize there was this much turnover in the Atlantic Division, but I think this division is going to be super fun. I think the East in general is going to be super fun.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I guess we'll just jump right into it. Unless there's something you wanted to mention before we go.
Yeah, it's just the East was definitely like just predicting the Atlantic. I haven't done the Metro yet, but it's so much harder than the West. The West felt like really easy.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely. I think there's more basement teams in the West, like true
Yeah,
basement. Like
there's a
even
real
like some of the
divide.
bad teams, even some of the bad teams in the East are like still like decent teams.
Right.
Like they'd be like decent teams in the West at least. Yeah. Also, shout out to Aaron Rodgers for almost being on my fantasy team this year. I was gonna
Yep.
pick him, and he went one pick before I picked. So
Yeah, I took Lamar Jackson and he absolutely stunk it up on Sunday. So, but at least he's not
oh
out
yeah,
for the
at
year.
least he's not injured.
Yeah.
So anyway, there you go. There's your fantasy football talk for the week. Maybe we'll do an
Yep.
episode about fantasy hockey after we're done this. I think that'd be kind of an interesting.
I think I'd rather talk about fantasy football, to be honest.
Oh yeah, fair enough. Um, just do
Fantasy
fantasy.
hockey is just not relevant. Like I play it, but
It's
it's not like relevant.
and it's a lot easier to like. There's not as much. I think strategy is probably the wrong word, but there's not as much like
Yeah,
nuance
and like
to it.
you set your lineup each day. Like you don't have to set out each week. Like in NFL, it's like you're waiting till Sunday. You set
Yeah,
your lineup, and you're like, oh man,
yeah.
the
Or you
the
can like
threat.
touch it up throughout the week, and you're like getting ready for it's like anticipation. You're like, oh, should I sit this
Yeah,
guy? Like, but like some guy might play like 4 times a week. You're like, ah, it's fine if he sits on my benches today. I don't know.
yeah, I agree.
There's not much. There's not much nuance to fantasy.
No,
Even just the drafting, it's like you just want points pretty well, and it just depends on the varying degrees of how much those things are worth. So yeah. Anyway, there you go. That's fantasy hockey sucks. That's the point.
yeah,
Um, but seriously, though, we might actually talk about
okay,
fantasy hockey
yeah,
at some point
sounds good.
because that it's relevant somewhat to the podcast. Anyway, so Atlantic Division. Let's get moving.
Yeah,
The Boston Bruins are the first team alphabetically, and they were the first team in the standings last year.
mm,
But a lot of turnover in Boston this season. The losses for the Bruins, obviously Bergeron and Krejci are kind of the big two. Taylor Hall as well. Dmitry Orlov, Tyler Bertuzzi were kind of I guess Garnet Hathaway too were kind of the deadline pickups. Thomas Nosek, Connor Clifton, Nick Foligno, and Mike Riley were some of the depth losses. I guess Milan Lucic. Oh no, Milan Lucic they added. I'm sorry. Um, JVR, Milan Lucic, Patrick Brown, Jesper Boquist, Morgan Geeky, Kevin Shattenkirk, and Ian Mitchell were the additions to the Boston Bruins roster. I think it's safe to say this team got worse.
yeah,
Yep.
I would agree.
The big question, though, is how much worse did they get?
Yeah,
What do you think?
I have them. I think way lower than most people will. I feel bad because like I was going into work today. I'm like thinking about the rankings. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm gonna put them in the playoffs. You know, Swayman
Mm-hmm.
Allmark, that's a playoff caliber goalie. But no, I do not have them in the playoffs.
Okay.
I have them
See,
sixth.
ooh.
That's a very
Okay.
hot take, but I think Coyle's like not good. I don't think he's good at all, actually, and especially as a first line center. I don't think Zaka will do what he did last year. I hate their depth. I mean, I like JVR, but Milan Lucic rostered on an NHL team.
I think Milan Lucic is fine.
Ah,
Fourth line? I think he's still a useful player.
I don't know. I was
Last year
watching
was
him
a
at the
little rough.
World
Last year
Championships,
was
and he is abysmal. He is brutal. Like I don't know why I'm getting so hung up on Milan Lucic, but he's horrible.
I mean, I think like do they have Lysell listed on here? They don't. I think Fabian Lysell makes the team for
I don't
Boston.
think so. They're probably going to trade him
Really?
for Mark Scheifele.
No, they can't. They don't. He's their only player that's like under 26. That's actually like relevant.
Yeah.
they can't move. I guess like offensively at least. Shout out to Charlie McAvoy. But okay, so 6. That's interesting. I have the
Yeah.
Bruins 4th. I have them just making the playoffs as a wild card team. I have them as the second wild card team actually because I did my Metro at the same time. This goaltending duo, even though I think Allmark takes a step back, I don't think it's going to be that. Like he's not going to win the Vezina, but he's still going to be a really good starter. Swayman obviously is a good backup plan as well, and this blue line is really good. Like I think this is one of the better blue lines in the NHL. I mean, even besides like outside of McAvoy, I mean like Grizzlick's really good. Hampus Lindholm was a dark horse Norris candidate last year. I don't think that happens again, but he was very good last season. Brandon Carlo's a really good kind of stay-at-home guy. I don't love Derek Forbort and Kevin Shattenkirk as the third pairing, but it's not terrible. I think the winger depth on this team is really good as long as everybody's healthy. It's similar to kind of Colorado. They're an injury away from being bad. Obviously, Colorado signed Thomas Tatar. Shout out. But yeah, I mean they're and obviously Bergeron and Pastrnak have had their injury problems anyway, so it's kind of that's also very very relevant discussion. But like yeah, the center core isn't very good, but I think the winger depth is going to be able to kind of carry them above some of the other teams in this division, and the blue line is phenomenal, and the goaltending is phenomenal. Like they probably lead the division in both those categories, and I think that's enough to just get them in. But I wouldn't be surprised. Like 6 is reasonable. Like I get the rationale on why people are going to be hesitant, but I also I don't think they're going to fall from the President's Trophy to out of the playoffs completely. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being naive.
I didn't want to. Trust me. I did not want to put them there, but I just thought there's no way this team holds up. Like these other teams in the division, like they're actually like they got juice. Like this team, I don't know.
Yeah, this
Like
division's going to be good. Everybody, I think, got better in this division outside
yeah,
of Boston. I think Boston's the only Boston and maybe Florida are the only 2 teams who got worse this summer.
yes. I agree.
Maybe Tampa Bay, actually. But no, severely is Boston. Like Florida and Tampa are arguable either way. Yeah, Boston absolutely got worse. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So 6th place. I think that's like it's fair. I think 4 to 6 seems like a good range for Boston regardless. Which means they're going to win the President's Trophy again.
Yeah, I was actually high on Boston last year.
So was I. I'm like 2nd in the division. Everybody called me crazy.
Like I saw the odds like for like Boston to win the cup. That's what I was gonna bet on, but
No,
that they didn't end up doing that. So
yeah,
should have bet on Vegas. Always Vegas house always wins.
yeah, exactly. 6-year plan. They told us.
Yeah.
They gave us the script 6 years ago.
Unreal, and we didn't even take it.
Yeah, should have listened. When Vegas literally gives you the cheat sheet, you should take
it.
Hey, yeah, shut up. Okay, Buffalo. The only team in this division that really didn't do anything this summer. They signed Connor Clifton and Eric Johnson. They lose Craig Anderson and Vinny Hinostroza. The thing with Buffalo is the kids, right? Like this team is going to make or break itself this season on the development of all their young players. And there's a lot of them. There is a plethora of young players, especially offensively, mostly offensively, who could step into this team and produce this year and next year. Like they're even the guys who are going to make the team this year. There's still another like 5 or 6 guys who won't make the team this year, who could make it. Like it's insane how stupid deep this team is, or could be, because we don't know. They're the biggest question mark in the NHL, I think, going into the season. And I think they have the widest range of possibilities here.
Yeah. I'm very high on Buffalo. Like you're not gonna believe me when I say how high I have them.
How high are you on Buffalo?
Like I have them 2nd.
Okay. Guess what?
What?
I have them 2nd too.
No way. I'm like they did nothing, but I still have them jumping up 4 spots.
Listen, but that's the thing is they didn't do anything. They didn't have to do anything.
No.
Like this team's
They're
going to be
adding
better by nature of the fact that they have a bunch of 21-year-olds stepping into their lineup who are going to be really good.
Dude, like look at their third line, like cap friendly depth chart. Like Jordan Greenway, that's a fine third
Yeah,
liner. Peyton
sure.
Krebs and JJ Paterka. Like I'm hyped to watch these. I'm gonna watch like a lot of Sabres games this year because they're gonna be
Yeah,
fun.
this is Olofsson, but daily faceoff is Olofsson there. They have Paterka on the second line, but regardless,
Oh,
like
that's almost better.
yeah, but like Peyton Krebs could be like the best third line center in the NHL this year.
Yeah,
That's a possibility, right? I mean, like this doesn't even have Jack Quinn on it yet. This doesn't have uh what's his face from the ice, not Benson, but
Savoy
Savoie, who could
or
make the
Isaac
team.
Rosen, who could make the
Yeah.
team out of camp.
Who's the other guy? Kulich could make the team out of camp.
Yeah, Yuri Kulich.
Like there's so these guys aren't even on the roster currently. Like
Yeah,
it's insane. And I don't think all those guys make the team because I don't think it's worth playing guys like Savoie and Kulich on the fourth line. Like that's not
no,
worth it. But like, and I mean, obviously, guys like Oposo is going to be on the team because he's a legacy guy. Gergensen is going to be on the team because he's a legacy guy. Tyson Jost can kind of take it or leave it. But like, you kind of have two of those spots in the bottom six already filled up. There's really not a lot of room on this team for guys to push into the lineup, at least to start.
yeah,
But like, there's so much upside here. Now, the blue line scares me a little bit.
really,
Outside of Darlene and Power, the blue line scares me. I don't
really.
like Matthias Samuelsson at
You
all.
you don't like him? I
No,
like him.
no. I did a whole like had a very long debate with somebody over with the Darlene and Heiskanen debate, and most of my argument was predicated on the fact that Matthias Samuelsson was just as bad, if not worse, than Ryan Suter last year.
Wait, do you think
Yeah, he
Heiskanen's better than Samuelson?
no.
Okay.
But my point was that like Darlene had a worse defensive because like the big argument for Heiskanen is that Ryan Suter stunk last year, which is true. Yeah, Matthias Samuelsson wasn't very good either. At least from what I can't remember exactly what the reason. Like there was a whole it was the earlier. It
Yeah,
was right around the Norris voting. Yeah, I mean Connor Clifton's fine. Yoki Haru, I can kind of take it or leave it. And Eric Johnson probably shouldn't be an everyday defenseman anymore on a good team, like on a second place in the Atlantic team. And then goaltending, right? Like you have Levi and Uka, so like that could be great, but it could
yeah.
also be an absolute disaster. It could be you could have two goalies be sub 900 goaltenders, and then this team flops and finishes seventh. This is I think the Buffalo Sabres have the widest range of possibilities out of any team in the NHL, and it's not close. I think that's kind of how I see them. I have them second, I believe. I think there's too much offensive upside on this team to not be good. But I also don't think that the comparisons to the New Jersey Devils last year are fair because New Jersey was a lot safer going into that season. Their blue line was a lot more established. Their forward core was a lot more established. Buffalo's kind of a wild card, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Devils had like they didn't have like a bunch of unproven defensemen coming. Like they had guys who you knew were going to be good. Like that blue line going into the season. Like even last year, like I'm pretty sure we talked about how good the Devils blue line looked. This is just kind of like it's Darlene, it's Power, and then it's just like a bunch of like Clifton, Johnson, Yoki Haru don't do anything for me. Samuelsson, it's another issue, but that's half their blue line is guys who don't really do much to move the needle. But I have them second, so like I feel like I'm kind of ragging on them right now. But
Yeah.
like for good, like again, these are legitimate issues with this team. They're legitimate question marks. I don't know if Devin Levi can do what he did for the last 20 games of the season again. So we'll see. But I think again, having the backup plan, like I think Uka's a good enough goalie. They
I
still have
think an
Eric Comrie
Uka
there too, don't
Comrie
they?
pairing can get by.
Yeah,
They're not going to finish
yeah,
second if Levi doesn't play like he did in the last 20, but they're going to
no,
make the playoffs probably.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think.
They have enough goaltending depth that like one of those three guys probably works out. And if all three of them don't, then they have huge problems. You know what? Honestly, like Buffalo is one of those teams I could see making a trade for a goalie if they need to. Like if we're at the deadline and Buffalo's hovering on a wild card team, they seem like a team that could be like in on a John Gibson, or if everything falls off in Winnipeg, maybe a Connor Hellebuck or a Saros, or like Askarov would be really fun here. Although I think they'd want a more established goaltender at that point if like all hell breaks loose and they need a goalie. They're kind of a
Right.
sneaky pick that I could see if the wheels fall off and none of those guys work out. They could move one of them, like an Uka prop, most likely, and one of their forwards who isn't currently on the roster for like a UC Saros, which I kind of like. I'm actually really into that now.
Yeah, that would be fun.
I think that'd be really fun. But again, that's like that's a in case of emergency break glass kind of situation, and they have the assets to do it.
Yeah.
So there is that kind of safety net. I don't think they'll need it, but it's there. Okay, well there we go. We've agreed on at least one team in every division.
Yeah. And I think
That's
we'll
fun.
agree on this one.
Really? Okay.
This next one.
The Detroit Red Wings. I've said a lot of things about the Detroit Red Wings lately. I'm not going to rehash them again. We've been over this. This is about this year anyway. It's not about the whole long term Yzer plan. It's about this season. And it was a big offseason again for Steve Yzerman. They lose Gustav Lindstrom in the Jeff Petrie trade, right? Yes. Delkovich, Pius Suter, Adam Ernie, Osterley, Haig, Jason, and Zadina are also all out. So really not like any major losses to the current team. They add DeBrincat, Comfort, Sprong, Christian Fischer, Shane Gostisbehere, Justin Hall, James Reimer, Alex Leon, Jeff Petrie, and Costin. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players who should all at least play some outside of maybe Alex Lyon, a significant role in this team this season. On an 18-man roster, adding 10 players to your team who should play pretty well, like should be rostered pretty well all 82 games, is like that's I've never seen that before. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I like Detroit got better this summer for sure. Yeah, that seems like it could be a continuity issue, but I mean, hey, I mean, again, I've done enough ragging on Steve Yzerman. I'll let you take it. Go ahead.
This team sucks. Like flat out, this team is just second last in the division. That's all I have to say.
Yep, I'm
Yeah.
with you on that.
Yeah. There's 6 teams better in this division. And it is close. I will give them that. It's close.
Yeah.
But they also suck. So
I don't know if I'd like. I don't know if I'd go that far. I don't know if suck
they're
is
not
the word.
that good. Like if you're 7th in the division, you're obviously not good. You
Yeah,
suck.
they're like. There's things I like here.
I like their forward core, but I don't like anything
Oh,
else.
I like their first line. If it is Raymond, Larkin, and DeBrincat, I think that's a really fun first line.
Well, DeBrincat's not playing on the second line because that's why he left Ottawa, apparently.
Yeah, I like. Other than that, I mean, their winger depth isn't great. I like Comfer and Cop. One of those guys, like both those guys, should be third liners. Like David Perron's fine. Like I'm not even gonna go there. I mean, like Fabry's okay. It like there's nothing here that really outside of that top line. Like there's nothing. Like it's a bunch of third liners.
Yeah.
And like
I
the
agree.
blue line's like okay. It's not as bad as it was, I guess. But maybe it is because like I'd rather have Philip Roenick over Jeff Petrie or Justin Hall or Shane Gostisbehere.
Yeah.
So like that's not better. I don't know. I don't see. There's nothing here outside of their first line, which I think will be very good. That real and like Mort Sider, that jumps out to me as like this is why this team's gonna make the playoffs this year. And Mort Sider wasn't very good last year either. He took a step back. Now a lot of that had to do with Ben Sherratt, but like when he played with Wallman, things got better. So that's fair. But yeah, like I don't see anything here that makes me say, in a very competitive Atlantic, let alone Eastern Conference, this is why the Red Wings are a playoff team.
Right.
And, you don't sign 10 new players to your roster if you're not trying to make the playoffs. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. We've done enough ragging on them. I think we should switch to the Panthers.
That's where I'll put the pin in it. The Florida Panthers. I'm not going to be very kind to the Florida Panthers either, I don't think.
We're not going to agree, or you're not very high on them?
I'm not going to be kind to them. Well,
okay.
I mean, I'll be more kind than I was.
So you have the Panthers 6th?
Yes.
I have them 5th.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fair. Yeah. Put the Stanley Cup run to the side, okay? This team should not have been in the Stanley Cup final. They weren't a Stanley Cup final team. Their performance in the Stanley Cup final proved that. They were a goaltending change away from losing in the first round, or not making goaltending change away from losing in the first round, right? Like, we all know what Sergei Bobrovsky is. If you're taking Sergei Bobrovsky in the first round of your fantasy leagues because you think he's going to be a Vezina candidate this year, don't. There's your fantasy hockey talk. Anthony Duclair, Radko Gudas, Eric and Mark Stahl, Patrick Hornquist, Colin Light, and Alex Lyon are their departures. Evan Rodriguez, who I really like, actually. Steven Lorenz, Rasmus Asplund, Kevin Stenlund, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Dmitry Kulikov, Mike Riley, and
who I
Nico
actually
Mikkola.
like a lot.
I like Mike Riley too. And Kulikov's not bad. Like, this is the second year in a row that the Panthers have just completely rebuilt their blue line, by the way.
Yeah. Let's see how it works out for them this time.
They literally had 4 new players last season too. And they have, I guess, 3 because Gudas was there. They have 4 new ones this time. So, yeah. Can we, like, Matthew Tkachuk's really good.
Yep.
He's not the 3rd best player in the NHL. Right? Like, all of that, like, I get it, right? And even, like, I had Matthew Tkachuk as my 2nd in Hart voting in January. So, like, I get it. I saw it. I saw it before a lot of you did, by the way. But, like, that's probably not gonna, like, he's not gonna have the greatest analytic season of all time again.
Yeah.
Probably
not.
Like, now I don't mind the Panthers roster. Like, I think it's fine. But I don't like their blue line. I don't like their goaltending. And Aaron Ekblad looked horrible last season. And nothing in Paul Maurice's history has shown me that that's going to change. And that's kind of the biggest thing here. Because, like, if Aaron Ekblad isn't a number 1 defenseman, this team doesn't have a top-pairing defenseman at all.
What about Brandon Montour? Top 10 defenseman.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I don't actually think he is, but
yeah, no.
That's the argument. Because he played 55 minutes that one time. So, he's just very good at hockey.
Is there a reason why Brandon Montour is not on?
Apparently him and Ekblad are on IR.
Oh, okay, perfect. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay. I was just looking. I'm like, where is, like, yeah, Ekblad's not in here. Like, okay, that's fine. Which is, yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, Forsling, Mahara, like, really? That's your second line, basically. Gustav Forsling's fine. He's a decent, like, second pair defenseman. But, like, everybody they signed shouldn't be an everyday NHLer. They have 4 defensemen right now who shouldn't play 82 games this season. And 2 of them are going to have to. Like, that's not great. I don't know. Like, I don't mind Mike Riley, but he shouldn't play 82 games.
Yeah, I agree. I tend to agree with that.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I mean, Oliver Ekman-Larsson definitely shouldn't play. If you watched him play any the last 3 years in Vancouver, he shouldn't be playing 82 games a year. Dmitry Kulikov like might be the most full-time NHLer of that four.
Mike Riley,
And like,
dude.
yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe. I feel like Kulikov, especially as a third pairing guy, like Kulikov's probably the safer pick. But like, sure. Regardless, they probably should be playing like 50, 60 games, which is probably what's going to happen. They're just going to rotate them out. But like, and like, who knows what Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight are going to be? And
Or
Anthony
Spencer Knight's
Stolarz.
gonna play.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like
Yeah,
it.
that's
I
why I
think
have him
they're
fifth.
safer pick at 6 than Detroit.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And moving on to last place, hopefully,
Hey.
for George.
Let's relax here for a second. Okay. Yeah, no, I mean they're gonna be last, but like
They are. And they're probably going to be like 29th in the league or 30th. I don't know.
okay, no, I disagree with that. I don't believe that.
Okay, you can
I'll
disagree,
I'll
but
I'll have a disagreement there.
okay.
Well, first of all, Casey DeSmith's gonna prove that he's a really good goalie. To start, because he is. He was like arguably better than uh, whatever his name is in Pittsburgh the last couple of years. Jari, like in small samples, he was a more consistent goaltender. But that's neither here nor there. The Montreal Canadiens lose Joel Edmondson, thankfully. They lose Jonathan Drouin, thankfully. They lose Dennis Gurianov, thankfully. Mike Hoffman's also gone, so that's great. Byron and Pitlick really sucks that Paul Byron had to retire because I really like Paul Byron.
Me
They
too,
had Alex
Alex.
Newhook and Casey DeSmith, which is fine. Like they really, aside from Buffalo, the Canadiens really didn't do much, and they didn't have to. This is a team that has a ton of. They're like 2 years behind where Buffalo's is like in the youth movement, if that makes sense. Like they have a bunch of these players, but they're probably not gonna be ready for another year or two, whereas Buffalo's are like ready today. Which is fine. Like, that's why they didn't do anything. Cole Caulfield playing a whole season might hit 40 this season. I think that's a decent bet to make. But again, he has to be healthy, which has been a problem for Cole Caulfield his entire career. Yeah, I mean, like the Canadiens being 8th here isn't a bad thing. It's kind of where they should be. And getting another, top 5 to 10 pick isn't going to hurt. And that's good. Play the kids. And Martin St. Louis has done a really good job of that. I actually really like Martin St. Louis as head coach. I think he's done a fantastic job letting everybody develop. Yeah, I don't hate Alex Newhook. I think the Canadiens overpaid for him, but he kind of fits that mold of player that they've been looking for. And I've said it a bunch. You can disagree with the vision that Montreal has, and that's fine. And I do in a lot of aspects, but at least there is one. Because there hasn't been for 10 years.
Yeah.
Now, like, there's a direction. You can clearly see what the plan is in Montreal, and they've followed it pretty well perfectly based on what they've wanted to do for 2.5 years. And that is refreshing. Now, we can have discussions on whether or not you agree with that direction, but it's there. And that in itself is a positive for the Canadiens. They're going to be bad. I think they're going to be really fun.
Dude, I
Especially
said
if
they
the kids
finished
play.
30th in the league. I don't think they have a bad direction. I think they need to suck for a little bit. They don't have any like future,
Yeah.
like outside of Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, and Kirby Doc. Like they could
I
really
mean,
use another like Matvey Michkov esque player.
it'd be great. Yeah, imagine.
Like imagine Ivan Demidov next year. Like that's the hope.
The Canadians could really use like a Logan Cooley or a Michkov in their system. That would be.
Yeah.
Where could you find one of those?
Or a Simon Nemec even if you're gonna go there.
I mean, okay, but to be fair, I think Reinbacher is going to be a really good puck moving
Yeah.
like
But I think
defenseman.
I'd
Like,
still rather have Simon Nemec than Uri.
oh, for sure, yeah. But I mean, like in that draft, I would have taken Cooley over like 10 out of 10 times. I'd take Cooley over Nemec just based on what the Canadians need, especially too.
Yeah.
And I think the talent level is close enough that you can
especially
pick for
at
need
that time because they didn't have Kirby Doc until midway through the draft.
Yeah,
but whatever.
I mean, to be fair, you probably know that trade's probably, but like Kirby Doc might play on the wing anyway. So like,
Yeah.
it's there's I don't hate the like again. I think the direction's good. They're just not like they're not anywhere near being a good team. And at least from what I've seen, I don't know if the fan base can handle another year of being terrible. I think there's a lot of the fan base that's getting kind of fed up with being in the basement of the NHL, which
Yeah.
is really funny because the whole argument for the last 10 years was they were fed up with being middle of the pack. So, you know,
The grass is always greener on the other side.
yeah. I mean, the grass is always greener when winning Stanley Cups, I guess. That's the only way to satisfy anybody.
Yeah, it's
But
been about
you
40
have to be
years since
bad to
that,
be good.
so
That's yeah. Well, hey.
you haven't been alive for one. I mean, I haven't been
No.
alive for any championship of any of my
Hey, you
teams,
know
so
what?
I can't really say anything.
I saw a Stanley Cup final, and that was good enough for me for
Yeah,
now. But no, like I
I haven't
definitely
even
like
made it to
this.
this third round.
You made it to the third round. The Jets made it to the third round.
Yeah, that was the best time of like my sports watching life, and I was like 12. So
That
shout out.
was a good time. I remember going to a couple games. It was a fun time. Um, yeah, I don't know. There's not much to say about the Canadians. Like they're not going to be very good. People are going to be upset. Welcome to the hockey in Canada, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm really
Speaking
interested
of
to
another
see if.
team, oh,
Well, I want to see Jordan Harris play better. By the way, because he
okay.
was really good last year and he was super underrated. And Canadians fans want him traded for some reason, but he's really good. I love Jordan Harris.
I want to see Jonathan Kovacevic get a lot of ice time, and
He
Arbor
was really
Jack guy.
good too. Kovacic, no, don't play Jack.
Arbor Jack guy sucks, but Kovacevic's pretty good.
He's not good. Kovacic, yeah, he's gonna be a
I
good
actually
like.
skated with him one time at a hockey
Really?
practice. On one of the teams
That's
I
cool.
coached, like in my hometown, they had some Moose guys come down and skate with
Okay,
us, and Johnny Kovacevic was one of them. It was so cool.
oh, that's cool. That's
It
sick.
was sick.
Anyway, transition us to Ottawa.
I kind of dusted him, but whatever.
Okay.
Speaking of another team that people are going to get really upset about,
Mm-hmm.
the Ottawa Senators, because
Yes.
Canadian team.
Yep.
I'm just going to start out before I say what they even added.
Yep.
I think they're quite mid. Like I have them literally fourth place.
Yeah. I have 5.
Okay.
So yeah, pretty yeah. The rebuild ended in 2019. Never forget. Pierre Dorian still has a job. So I don't know how that works. The rebuild
Wild.
ended 4 years ago, and they have 0 playoff games. So, yeah, whatever. I did like their offseason. They moved to Brinkat, which kind of had to happen. Talbot, Brown, Gauthier, Watson, Brassard, and Holden all also gone. Kubalik, Tarasenko, McEwen, and Korpisalo were added. I completely forgot that about Vladimir Tarasenko until this morning. It's just been that kind of summer. I think Ottawa's like obviously, like we kind of did this with the Blues, but until we find out if Josh Norris is going to be playing or not, we're just going to kind of assume that he is because he's on their roster, and the Hockey Canada report isn't out, so that's fun. Isn't there another guy? Isn't Drake Batherson on that team too, or is that who I'm thinking of?
Formanton and Batherson were both on that team.
I'm sorry, I wasn't Josh Norris. I apologize to Josh Norris. It was Formanton and Batherson. Why is Josh Norris out? What's wrong with him?
He like broke his back last year or something.
Oh, okay. That's why he's got a little thing next to him. Okay, never mind. I apologize to Josh Norris. Formanton and Batherson. That's right. So until they're not on the team, we're going to assume
And
that they are.
Formanton hasn't been re-signed. Not to speculate,
Yeah, that's kind of
but I
makes you
kind of
think.
it really makes me since they didn't qualify as RFA and he was like a pretty good player. I
Yeah, it's
really
kind
am led to believe that he's one of the four.
there's probably something there.
I'm not gonna go check people if they're private on Instagram to see if that's who it is, but I think there's pretty easy to say that Alex Formanton's one of the four, just based on the fact that you
It's
go
a
from
couple.
top 6 to your RFA status not getting tendered. Shout
Yeah,
out
and
Max
now you're
Comtois, maybe
yeah.
he
He
didn't
just got
get
picked up.
tendered.
Who did he get picked
Yeah,
up
he
by?
did.
It was
Didn't he
Vegas,
get
right?
picked up by the Stars?
I think it was Vegas.
Oh yeah,
So
that makes sense.
Well, it was a PTO. It wasn't like he didn't officially sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I was really worried Thomas Tatar was going to get a PTO and I was going to cry, but he actually signed, which again, shout out. I really like that move. That might be one of my favorite moves of the offseason, actually. I think he fits perfectly into Colorado's top 6. Once Jonathan Drouin gets kicked to the 4th line in like 5 games, Thomas Tatar will play with McKinnon and it'll be really fun.
Yeah.
But Ottawa, that's what we're talking about. First line's fun. they have Tarasenko on there. I kind of like Giroux there more, but Claude Giroux, by the way, sneaky, still really elite. Like I don't know if you looked at Claude Giroux's numbers
Yeah, he's a
um
beast.
last year. He's really good.
Yeah.
Like he is still really good. Um, it kind of reminds me of like what Joe Thornton was doing at the end of his career. Like before he went to like even in Toronto, he was still had like or before Toronto, like he was still obviously I think Giroux's better, but he was like still a really really good player. That's kind of what I see in. And I'm thinking it's just Joe Thornton. Yeah, it's Joe Thornton. Um, yeah, Claude Giroux is kind of having that like age isn't really affecting him kind of thing right now, and it's fun because he was sneaky really good last year. I don't mind the center point. I mean, obviously Tim Stützle is like fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, like Norris and Pinto, which I think is a good 2-3. Um, yeah, the blue line's fun. I really like the top six now. I'm a huge Jacob Chikrin fan, so that's good. I'm a huge Thomas Chabot fan too. Um, and I have
And
Jake
Zub.
Sanderson in my dynasty league, so I'm kind of right. Yeah, and Zub's really good too. Then Travis Hamonic sitting there. The shout out to Pierre McGuire.
Shout out St. Malo, Manitoba.
Yeah. Um, yeah, the biggest thing here for me is goaltending. I don't like Korpisalo at all. I hate the contract they gave Korpisalo. Anton Forsberg is a solid backup, but that's kind of the biggest question mark. Like Korpisalo is like super inconsistent. But forward wise, I think they're like they have a playoff caliber forward core, and I think they have a playoff caliber defensive core.
Yeah.
So that I mean, I have them just miss. I literally have them. I think they're my 9. Yeah, they're my 9 seed in the East, and I think it's close. I think it's like a point or two between them and my 4. So there's like, I think this is the easily the best chance Ottawa's had to make the playoffs, and they almost did it last year. Even after the trade deadline, they had like that weird push for like 5 games, and then they just ran out of room.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's some teams at the top that got worse in the Atlantic, and Ottawa could be a team that takes advantage of that this season.
Moving on to team that got worse. Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yes, sir. Now they didn't get as much, they didn't get as worse as they have in the past.
No.
But like it's the wheels are like it's like the Tampa Bay Lightning are like the car crash that is gonna happen, and they just start getting they're just like slowly getting closer and closer to each other, and eventually there's gonna be a huge explosion and things are gonna go real bad. But until then, there's always that thing in the back of your head being like, maybe they won't get into a car crash. Maybe it'll be okay. That's kind of where Tampa Bay is right now. They lose Killorn, Perry, Maroon, Elliott, Belmar, Ross Colton, and Ian Cole. They add Glendening, Brown, Sheary, Mott, Dehan, and Jonas Johansson, who somehow is still able to get backup jobs in the NHL.
Yeah,
Despite
that's
never
brutal.
being a goalie in his career. I don't
He's
get it.
been horrible.
But
He must
he's
have some
going to be
dirt on some NHL GM.
he's going to be the full-time backup. Like, who else does Tampa have? Like, it's crazy.
Maybe Hugo Alnefeld makes it out of camp, but he's 22, so that doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
I don't know. I mean, Vasilevsky used to play like 70 games anyway, so it really doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay depth wise is not good. I think that's fair.
Yeah, their depth's not good. It was hard to put them at 3 for me.
Yeah, I have them also at 3. Uh, but like they still have Kucherov and Stamkos and Point and like Hedman and Vasilevsky. I can't. It's kind of like where I was with Boston last year, where it's like there everything tells me that they might miss the playoffs, but until these guys prove to me that they aren't good anymore, you kind of just have to believe in them.
Yeah.
Because like the top 6 is still very good. Like the goaltending's still very good. The top pair is still, like I think Hedman's kind of fell off a little bit. And people don't want to admit that, but he's still a very good defenseman. Um,
Yeah.
like, and I mean, Mikhail Sergachev looked pretty good last year too. So like, it's not. I mean, Eric Chernak had a good seat. Like, there's still a lot to like here. And I do like the Tyler Mott signing. I think Tyler Mott's super underrated, and he'll be fine. And Connor Sherry too. Connor Sherry is a really good pickup for the Lightning. He'll kind of fit nicely into that middle six kind of role. But like the days of Tampa Bay being a true cup contender are over. Now they're just kind of like we had our run where we went all in every year forever, and now we're just kind of like gonna hang on and be okay with being like the playoff team nobody really wants to play because of like they could go on a run. Kind of what Pittsburgh was at the end.
Right.
Or what Pittsburgh is now. I don't know. What are your kind of like in-depth thoughts on the Lightning roster?
I like their top end a lot. But like looking at this cap friendly, it's like they are really gonna crash and burn at one point, and it's gonna be really fun to
It happened
watch.
eventually, maybe one day.
Like, oh, it's just like it's not good.
It's right. I mean, the hard cap has not been kind to the Tampa Bay Lightning,
No, it hasn't. This
but
team
they
with a
still found ways
soft
to make it
cap would
work.
have been so
Like,
good.
oh, could you, or even
Like
like the cap
true
going up.
dynasty if the cap went up.
Like, if the cap, yeah, not even a soft cap, but just like let the cap go up a couple million each year. Like,
Yeah, it's not too
I
much
still
to
think that
ask.
like Tampa Bay going to 3 straight Stanley Cups in the era where the cap literally did not move a penny is one of the greatest management feats I think we'll ever see in the NHL. Like I fully believe that. And it screwed them forever. Like this team is not like there's going to be like a 10-year period where the Tampa Bay Lightning are awful. Um but they well obviously they were, a couple games away from winning 3 straight Stanley Cups in an era where the cap, like not just a hard cap, but literally was $81.5 million for all 3 seasons. And even the season before that, it was 81.5. The year they won the President's Trophy and lost in the first round to Columbus. So
Right.
like that is so impressive. Like it's incredible what this team was able to do to maintain that kind of success, even for like a 4 or 5 year span.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's ending real like it's. But again, like the Lightning could win, right now I'd have them playing the Sabres, and honestly, I'd probably take Tampa Bay in that series just based off the experience and everything. Like
Right.
going into the season, like that's my 2-3, and that's your 2-3. I'd go Lightning in like 6 in that series, personally. So like, it's just, I can't bet against Tampa Bay right now.
Yeah, it is hard. Like they've been good for so long, and I've always like thought that they could be not good, but
Yeah, it's like maybe this is the
it's
year.
just
Maybe this is the
tough.
year they fall off. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard. They're the hardest team to not have make the playoffs. I'm getting closer. They're third now. They're slowly starting to kind of dip down. Um, so moving on to the team that I think everybody unanimously has winning this division. Um, and as much as like regular season stuff shouldn't matter to this team anymore, and that stupid narrative, like if this team, if the if the Toronto Maple Leafs do not win the Atlantic Division, um, something went wrong. Because I like they are maybe the most secure team going into the season and winning their division. Is that fair?
I'd say out
I
of all
don't
the
know.
four, I
I
don't
don't
know
know
of
another team that like is.
like in the Metro you got Carolina Devils split. In
Yep.
the Central you've got the Stars Avs.
Yep.
Pacific you've got Oilers, whatever,
Vegas.
Vegas.
Yeah. I
So
don't see a team here. Maybe like Tampa Bay would actually be the only other team I could see winning this
yeah, I
division. I
don't
don't
think
think
Buffalo's winning the
Atlanta.
division. I'm high on Buffalo, but they're not
Yeah.
winning the division.
Which is funny because we have both of them second and Tampa Bay third. But like I think
Yeah.
Tampa Bay kind of had like second is kind of like the cap for the Sabres. I think Tampa Bay is the only team I could see maybe pushing, but I don't think there's enough there to do it for 82 games. But yeah, Toronto additions, subscription, they lost a lot. Um, Michael Bunting, I can't speak. Ryan O'Reilly, Luke Shen, Justin Hall, Noel Chari, Alex Kerfoot, Zach Astor-Reese, Wayne Simmons, Eric Gustafson, and Eric Kilgren. The Bertuzzi, Domi, Gambrell, Reeves, Klinberg, real big theme among those players
Yeah.
for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Um, there's a direction that Brad Treliving had going into this summer, and that was he wanted to get tougher. And in doing that, he accidentally signed two really good players in Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi, who I really like. And then he
And
signed
then Ryan Reeves.
Dylan Gambrell and Ryan Reeves.
Yeah,
Um,
and Ryan Reeves is making $150,000 less than Thomas Tatar. So shout out.
yeah,
The Leafs don't have that much money anyway because they're 13 mil over, but still.
yeah, and yeah, David Kampf too. Big extension for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, but it's saying that. I mean, like Tyler Bertuzzi might be the best power forward that Austin Matthews gets to play with in his career so far. I don't think that's crazy. I don't know if I'd put him ahead of Bunting for sure. And at least when he was a Leaf, yeah, I don't think there's anybody better.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what's his face? It's Edmonton now. Why am I blanking on names?
That's confusing.
Leaf that he played with Toronto like 2 years ago.
Ennis?
No,
Barry?
for like
Hyman?
power forward. Hyman, yeah, thank you.
You forgot Zach Hyman? Dude.
No, so did you. Okay.
Well, I don't know. It could be some bum, but it's Zach
It's
Hyman.
like
I'm thinking it's
power
either
forward
Zach
that Austin
Hyman,
Matthews
Cody Cece, or Jack Campbell.
played.
There's a lot of former Leafs on the Oilers.
Yeah, power forward that Austin Matthews. Yeah, that's why the Oilers aren't winning a Stanley Cup. Everybody, there you go. Figured it out. But no, I mean, yeah, power forward that Austin Matthews, because Bertuzzi's going to play at least to start on that line with Matthews. Like, I think he's better than what Hyman was in Edmonton, and I think he's better than Bunting. So that's an upgrade. I really like Max Domi, as well here.
I do too.
And Matthew Nyes is kind of the big quiet. We talked about it like a while ago on the podcast. But Matthew Nyes is kind of like if he can step up and play, that's a big kind of game changer for the bottom six in Toronto.
I agree.
Yeah, and goaltending, right? I mean, they're kind of just running it back. I don't love Joseph Woll kind of having to potentially step in with no anything backing him up.
I think Joseph Wool's better than Martin Jones, though.
Oh, I mean, yeah. Well, they signed Martin Jones too, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, okay, fine. So they have that. I mean, Martin Jones was fine last year, so that's like, I guess, good insurance. The blue line should be good. I don't love John Klingberg. I really don't. I would have kept
I
Eric
actually
Gustafsson.
dislike. Yeah.
Yeah, Eric Gustafsson kind of does everything better than what John Klingberg does. He's just not as flashy of a name.
Yeah.
But it's a 1 year deal, so I mean, it's not going to work, but it's fine. Yeah, I mean, Mark Giordano is kind of a big question mark too, because like, when do the wheels fall off that bus, right? Like, it's very possible it could happen like 10 games into the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Jake McCabe I really like. Riley and Brody is the really good first pair. Like, I don't know why it gets so much hate. Both those guys rock. And like Timothy Liljegren has to kind of move into that top four at some point this season. Like, he has to like solidify himself as the fourth defenseman on this team. For sure. Especially moving Sandin out, which was like crazy to me, but
That is wild.
yeah, I'm a shout out to Brandon Shanahan, I guess. I think there's not really a ton of holes on this team. Like, as much as we rip on like the contracts they gave out to the bottom six,
It looks a lot better than last year, I will say.
it's a good bottom six.
Yeah.
And like, even like the blue line's kind of my biggest question mark. But like Timothy Liljegren can step up into that top four, and then it's kind of like you have, Klingberg and Giordano kind of running it, and they got a couple of young guys who can come up too. So that could be better. And goaltending, right? I mean, Ilya Samsonov looked good last year in spurts. He didn't look very good in the playoffs, but he outplayed Vasilevsky, who also didn't look very good in the playoffs. But
yeah. There's one thing the Leafs need to do, though, and they won't because they just signed him. But if you traded John Klingberg and your right defensemen were TJ Brody, Liljegren, and Connor Timmins, I actually like that way more.
Yeah. They have they have a couple other young guys too. I can't remember who they are, but they have a couple. I'll pull it up.
Niemela?
Yeah, Niemela could play. There's somebody else too. There's another guy.
Kokkonen.
Yes, that's what it is. Like both those guys out of camp are going to be really interesting to watch in the preseason. I think. I think there's a lot of opportunity in that, especially on that third pair, for players to step up in Toronto, and that's a good thing because they have the guys to fill those spots. I have them first in the division. I think it's a pretty solid first place. I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, I do too. And I counter, or I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, what do you? So I have Toronto, Buffalo, Tampa Bay, Boston. You have Toronto, Buffalo, Tampa Bay, Ottawa. Right.
Toronto, Buffalo, Tampa Bay,
Buffalo, Tampa
Ottawa.
Bay.
Yes.
Yeah. So we just have Boston. And I literally think there's like a point separating Boston and Ottawa. Like it's a coin flip, but I just kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
I have Ottawa, Florida, Detroit, Montreal, and I think you had pretty well the same thing. No, oh no, you had Florida, Boston, Detroit, Montreal.
I had Florida, Boston. Like me and you just flipped
Boston, Ottawa, and Florida.
Boston, Ottawa, Florida.
That's it. You literally just moved. Like I just slid Boston from 6 to 4.
Yes.
That's essentially all that happened. So that's probably the closest. I think that's the closest division we've had.
No,
Oh,
we
yeah,
were closer on the Pacific. We just had one different.
Yeah, and we just flipped the two teams. Yeah, that's right.
The Metro, though, there'll be some differences. No, actually, there probably won't
Maybe.
be. Metro
Maybe,
might be easier.
We've been pretty similar. So even the Central is pretty good. So
And we don't talk about our rankings beforehand. Like people
no,
might think this, but we never do.
No.
So we're
It's
like
fun.
our reactions are genuine when we hear, who's who.
It's just there's no fun in staging it. Like
Yeah, no.
this isn't other hockey podcasts that might do that. Everything that we produce on this podcast is real and not inflated at all. And I think this is the perfect opportunity to give you that disclaimer that all the stories that we talk about are 100% vetted and true.
Yeah. Peer reviewed.
Peer review, exactly. Not, I'm not
Mexican aliens,
I'm not sharing text messages from players sharing stories that aren't real. We'll talk about the
Paul Bissonnette versus Mike Babcock is not on my bingo card.
We're gonna do the Metropolitan Division next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next week.
We'll have
maybe the waters will settle at that point too, but we'll still talk about what happened.
There'll be more information too, to be fair, at that point, about this. But
just a little tip of advice: don't take advice like if I work at one job and I do this thing horribly, and then I go work at a different job and I haven't done it horribly yet, you can't talk to people who from my last job where I did it horribly, and just assume that's what I'm doing
similar.
now.
That's not actually what I'm doing. But
yes.
Again, maybe there's more information out there. I don't know. But,
maybe
people overreacted to begin with. Maybe we're overreacting by not reacting to it now. So we'll see. We'll see how things are in a week.
Yeah, I would like to assume that Mike Babcock's not like a creep, but
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Can't really assume these days, so
Yeah, I mean, there's been even like Jack Hahn talked about how like he had those picture meetings with Babcock in Toronto, and it was literally just.
But it's not like show me pictures on your phone. It's hey, show me one picture about yourself, because like he's a visual guy. I guess
I don't know. It's still a little weird, but like it's not a fireable offense. It's just kind of
it's just a weird management thing.
Yeah, I could understand how that would be a little off-putting for some people, but like there's a big difference there. Anyway, we'll talk about the Columbus. But I have a lot of thoughts about the Blue Jackets actually, because I think they're going to be interesting. But that is the Metro, or that's the Atlantic that we did today. The Metro will be next week.
Yeah.
Yes. Follow the podcast. Like us on YouTube. You can see full videos on YouTube as well. Rate us on Apple and Spotify. For the episodes. I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
Yeah. And DM the account saying what our Pierre Luc Dubois bet thing should be. We still haven't decided what.
Yeah, we haven't. What the
loser's gonna have to do.
What that's gonna be.
Like I'm thinking something fun would be like drinking an egg on Instagram Live, like a raw egg, like something like that.
Throw up all over my dorm. See, if you're going to like in-person classes, we could have done something fun with that. But
that is true.
Yeah.
Darn.
I'd be the only one losing there. But
Yeah. Whatever.
I don't know.
Pierre-Luc
We'll come
Dubois
up.
over is going
Yeah,
to cash
give us,
anyway.
yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. I got a lot of people. A lot of people agree with you. I'm not getting a lot of support on the Pierre-Luc
Really? I'm
Dubois.
surprised. I get a lot of hate where I talk to people about my bet. They're like, "What are you doing?"
I'm
I'm
not,
like,
I'm
"Dude, I'm
not getting
making
a
money
lot.
here."
All my DMs have been calling me an idiot when I shared that video. So I'm not loving it so far. But yeah, let us know what we should do for that because we don't know.
Yeah.
We have all season to figure it out though, so
Yeah.
that's fine.
Unless Pierre-Luc Dubois pulls an Aaron Rodgers and, takes 4
Yeah,
shifts.
gets
But
hurt.
whatever.
Which you put the I didn't want the injury clause, but you took it. So
That is true.
whatever.
So he's going to hurt
No,
17 games into the season.
nonsense.
Or
I'd
no,
be so upset.
66.
What was our clause? I think it was what 60. Yeah, 60,
65.
60 65 was the line. Yeah, so that's fine. But yeah, I think that's everything that we had to plug. You can follow Brody on Instagram.
Yeah.
And you can follow me on Instagram too. So
You can also
you
follow
should
me
know
on
everything.
LinkedIn at Brody Neufeld.
Oh yeah,
I
I have
like growing
LinkedIn
the
as well.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, my LinkedIn's popping off lately, man. I mean, guess being around sports management students all the time is like
Yeah, that is true.
you just yeah. I got like 10 guys to get LinkedIn like yesterday because I was explaining to them how easy. I was like, yeah, like Michael Delzato just added me on LinkedIn. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
that's sick.
Yeah, so I think he did it. I don't know. Maybe he unfollowed me, but I don't know. Anyway, yeah, get LinkedIn and drink water. See you guys next week.